Want to know the secret to a great night's sleep? It's Purple. Why? Because only Purple mattresses have the Gel Flex Grid. It's the reason why Purple mattresses are soft where you want it, firm where you need it, and instantly respond to movement. The Gel Flex Grid flexes around pressure points to support your whole body, no matter how you sleep. Plus, the Gel Flex Grid is 80% air. It breathes, so you're not too hot or too cold. Learn more about Purple mattresses and the Gel Flex Grid at purple.com. Purple, reinventing sleep.
For 40 years, Michael Myers has haunted this town. He is the essence of evil, and evil dies tonight.
Halloween Kills, rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent. In theaters and streaming only on Peacock now.
Hello, this is the English program. It's the 28th of October, 2021. I want to take you back to 2020. February the 27th. That was when Anna Paulina Lee, who is Assistant Professor of Latin American and Iberian Cultures at Columbia University, published this article. Slave Revolt Film revisits history often omitted from textbooks. Now, I like this one because normally the narrative is read the books because the films tend to skip a lot of the history. Well, here it's the other way. The author writes, armed with machetes and pitchforks and uttering chants of freedom or death, hundreds of men and women made their way along a 26-mile route along the river parishes of Louisiana. The spectacle, which I witnessed in November 2019 in St. John the Baptist Parish, in the heartland of Louisiana's sugarcane and oil industries, was a reenactment of what historians believe was the largest slave rebellion in United States history, the 1811 German Coast Uprising. That winter, the author says, along the east bank of the Mississippi River, Charles Deslunders, an enslaved man believed to have arrived in Louisiana from Haiti, led a group of about 30 enslaved people in an uprising at a plantation owned by Manuel Andre. They killed Andre's son Gilbert and then set out to establish a black state along the banks of the Mississippi. As the movement continued, the uprising grew to about 500 people headed for New Orleans. In real life, a group of 100 armed bounty hunters put the uprising down. Dozens of the rebels were subjected to a monstrous public punishment that included torture and execution. Many were decapitated, their heads placed on spiked poles along a 60-mile stretch of the Mississippi River in a message meant to frighten other enslaved people who might have dared to resist. In the reenactment, which artist Dred Scott is making into a documentary film that is set to be released in October 2020, the revolt ends in victory. The author says, as a scholar who studies race and how historical events are represented and remembered, I see Scott's forthcoming film as an opportunity to correct a glaring problem with the way that slavery is taught or not taught in U.S. schools. And that is, the history of slavery in America is often either excluded or taught in ways that humiliate students and sympathize with slaveholders. The history of slavery is also usually not taught as something that was created by white supremacy and protected and sanctioned by the Constitution. Scott's film, the author says, which is being produced with a $1 million budget, deliberately reimagined the outcome for one of several slave revolts, an aspect of slavery that scholars believe has not gotten its due. Though some might criticize this cinematic interpretation as historically inaccurate, the author says, I believe the reenactment can generate important classroom discussions about historical memory and the history of slavery. What does it mean, for instance, to imagine freedom as something that happened instead of something that was destroyed for those who participated in slave revolts? What does it mean to transform their death and public punishment into an uplifting narrative of hope and freedom? How to confront the histories and afterlives of slavery is a central concern for Dred Scott, whose artist name pays homage to the 1857 Dred Scott Supreme Court case that ruled against an enslaved man's bid for freedom. Scott says it was an ethical decision to refuse to replicate a massacre of black people at the hands of white bounty hunters who would earn money from their deaths. As Scott has stated, the reenactment is interrupting the historic timeline. The author says Scott is not a historian, but an artist who calls upon the public to imagine speculative histories. In this respect, the author says, I believe that his work examines freedom struggles and abolition across time. Scott's endeavour contributes significantly to a much-needed conversation about slavery and the violence that it entailed. It leaves open the challenge of how to reimagine art for art's sake, and to instead use art for the sake of social action. In conclusion, the author says, revisiting histories, like the history of slavery, is a painstaking and painful task. The difficulties are not only about asking the nation to confront the legacy of racial supremacy. Rather, the 1811 Slave Rebellion reenactment is also about creating new political futures. This is the English Program.
Want to know the secret to a great night's sleep? It's Purple. Why? Because only Purple mattresses have the Gel Flex Grid. It's the reason why Purple mattresses are soft where you want it, firm where you need it, and instantly respond to movement. The Gel Flex Grid flexes around pressure points to support your whole body no matter how you sleep. Plus, the Gel Flex Grid is 80% air. It breathes, so you're not too hot or too cold. Learn more about Purple mattresses and the Gel Flex Grid at purple.com. Purple, reinventing sleep.
Hey, Jen, we need to sell our home. Do you know a great agent?
I do. We just sold with a local Redfin agent. It was awesome. And we paid a 1% listing fee because we bought our new home with Redfin, too.
Wow, 1%. Are Redfin agents full service?
Totally. Our Redfin agent did it all, and we sold for thousands more than the home next door.
I'll check out Redfin today.
1% listing fee when purchasing with Redfin, subject to minimums, terms, and conditions. Does not include buyer's agent commission. Learn more at redfin.com or call 844-759-7732.